Hey guys, it's Friday, that means it's time for another deck, and all this week I'm going to be playing my Rakdos Aggro deck. I wanted to do an aggro deck this week, I haven't done one in a month, and I didn't want to just do, you know, goblins or Boros tokens or anything, so I'm going to show you a black-red deck. So let's just start off with the creature package that I'm running. This is, it's got more red spells than black ones, but the mana costs on the black spells tend to be a bit trickier and are 1-drops for black. So anyways, we got all 3 copies of Tormented Hero here. He's a 2/1 for 1, enters the battlefield tapped. And his heroic trigger gives you a little bit of reach. There aren't that many spells in this deck that are actually going to target it and trigger it, but he's a 2-power 1-drop in black, so we're going to play him in an aggro deck. And I'll skip over the spells for now and just show you. I'm playing 2 copies of Guldraz Vampire. There's a very, very minor vampire sub-theme in this. I really don't know what else to do with these 2 slots. There's nothing at 2 mana or less that I really want to run, so you know, if you got any suggestions for this, I'm open to them. It's a 1-mana 1/1, so again, it's another 1-drop that can start chipping away. But if you draw into it later in the game and your opponent's under 10, or at 10 or under, you're getting a 3/2 for 1 mana with Intimidate, which is pretty decent value, obviously. So I mean, it's not a card you want in your opening hand in this deck, and you know, but if you draw it when your opponent gets to 10 or less, then it's pretty good value. So there's a couple of those here. Playing the Bloodghast, double black, 2/1. Can't block, and it has haste as long as the opponent has 10 or less life. And whenever you play land, Bloodghast can come back out of the graveyard to the battlefield to. So he really annoys a lot of decks by just, you know, constantly coming back. Gets exiled by Anger of the Gods, which is annoying, but you know, he's a good 2-mana card, and he's part of that very, very small vampire sub theme that I mentioned. The other part of the vampire sub theme here is Colostria Highborn. Again, double black. This time a 2/2 instead of a 2/1. She's a vampire, but whenever she or another vampire you control dies, you can pay black mana, and if you do, you know, your opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So it's a little bit of reach. And I've got some sacrifice outlets in this deck that I can use to sacrifice vampires on demand to take use of that reach. And you know, she's a 2/2 for 2. You know, so she's not the worst thing in the world. I've only got those 6 vampires in the deck. These 2 guys, and these 2 guys. But she triggers herself at the very least, so when she dies, you get to shock them and gain a little bit of life, so that's okay. The last black creature, I'm running all 4 copies of Devouring Swarm. It's a 3-mana 2/1 flyer, but it's a sacrifice outlet, so when you sacrifice a creature, Devouring Swarm gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you can force through damage in the air with this. You can sacrifice your Bloodghasts if it can't get through and then play land to get them back. You can sacrifice vampires to activate your Colostria Highborn. You can just, you know, I've got some goblin tokens in the deck, we could just sacrifice those to you know, force through damage in the air. So I like the card. It's pretty good. You don't see it too much, so that's you know, that's why I kind of want to get it in here and play a card that not too many people are playing. So those are the black creatures. Skip the spells. We're playing Young Pyromancer in the deck. He's I think we all know this guy. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get an elemental token, and you know, he's a 2-mana 2/1, which again in an aggro deck, 2-drop with 2 power. Is you just want to get as much of these early guys onto the battlefield as you can, and you know, this guy can attack a lot in this deck since we've got Coordinated Assault. I'll talk about that later. And another red creature, we're playing a Hellspark Elemental, 2-mana 3/1 trample, haste, but it goes away at the end of the turn, and you can unearth it for the same price. So you get to swing twice with this guy. So you know, he's basically a glorified burn spell. So you know, he's really good in an aggro deck. We're playing Goblin Shortcutter here as well. We're playing all 4 copies. Again, he's a 2-mana 2/1. So, but when he enters the battlefield, target creature can't block this turn. So he's really great at forcing through damage, especially against the mid-range decks where they play Cultivate and then they lay you know, an Arbor Colossus, and you just play your Goblin Shortcutter and swing right on past it, and it really forces through a lot of damage. So he's really good here. Excuse me. We're also playing all 4 copies of Krenko's Command. Again, another 2-drop. It gives us 2 creatures, so it's a little bit of resiliency to removal and helps us go a little bit wide. And also because we're playing Goblin Rabblemaster in the deck, since we're playing red aggro, it's pretty hard not to play this guy. He takes over the game, you know, if he's not dealt with, and he can win it all by himself. So he makes a goblin every single turn. He forces your other goblins to attack, which is not the greatest thing in the world. So you got your shortcutters are going to have to attack, and your goblin tokens, but you know, I mean, we want to be attacking anyway in this deck, so it's not the most terrible thing. And you know, we've got 3 copies of Coordinated Assault, like I mentioned, so we can give it first strike. So we can, if we've got one of those in hand, we can swing with it and, you know, potentially kill something pretty big. So those are the creatures. It's 25 of those plus 4 Krenko's commands, which is really, you know, It's a sorcery, but it's, you know, it's a creature spell. But it triggers the Young Pyromancer. So I'm only playing 14 spells in the deck. Young Pyromancer is not at his best here, but I think with 14 spells he's still worth playing as a 2-drop. So we're playing Ulcerate here. It's 1 mana, target creature, it's an instant, target creature gets -3/-3 till end of turn, you lose 3 life. Since we're playing the beatdown role here, we don't really care about our own life total a whole lot. We're trying to race. And -3/-3 at instant speed for just 1 mana is pretty huge to get blockers out of the way. So we're going to play that. Triggers Pyromancer. That's the only black spell we're playing, but we're playing 3 copies of Coordinated Assault, so you can give up to 2 target creatures +1/+0 and first strike. So I mean, this is obviously great with the Tormented Hero, because you get to kill something usually because he'll be 3 power first strike, and you also get the heroic trigger to, you know, drain them for a point of life loss and gain 1 point of life. So going back to that, I mean, there's a very, very small bit of life gain in this deck to sometimes offset your Ulcerate. You can every now and then gain a point of life off a Tormented Hero and these Calastria Highborn triggers. It's not too often, but there's a small bit of life gain in here. We're also playing Shock to get early blockers out of the way so that our little guys can connect. Again, triggers to Pyromancer. I mean, Shock in his format kills all the relevant early threats, so we're going to play all 4 copies of that. And we talked about Krenko's Command when we were talking about the creatures, obviously, because it is a creature spell. Pretty straightforward deck. Just get a lot of little dudes on the battlefield early, play a lot of cheap removal, and just try to kill them before they get to do anything, and you get a little bit of extra reach with the Highborns and the Tormented Heroes. So let's take a look at the mana blaze. I'm playing 21 land, playing all 4 Guild Gates because of all the double black spells. I need to play all of these, unfortunately. I'm playing 10 swamps and 7 mountains. So if you go down here, you'll notice I have 23 red spells and only 16 black. So I've got more red spells, you know, 50% more red spells than black. Yet I'm playing more swamps than mountains. So in the early game, I want to get Tormented Heroes, or if I draw Gul'Draz, out on the first turn, and then I want to be able to follow that up with Bloodghasts and Highborns, and I've also got Devouring Swarms with double black. So all my red spells only have a single pip, but I still do need 2 red sources to cast multiple red spells in a single turn. So sometimes you can get bottlenecked on red mana or black. The mana in this deck isn't, well, it isn't the greatest. You know, it's pretty close. I wish we had shock lands instead of these fucking gates, but what are you going to do? It's Duels of Planeswalkers. So yeah, 21 land I think is pretty good. We're only playing 6 3-drops. Everything else is 2 or less. So I mean, like I said, pretty straightforward aggro deck. Just try and kill them. You know, there's a lot of cute things you can do with Devouring Swarm. I really like this card. You can swing with your whole team, and then whatever they block, you can just sacrifice those creatures and force that damage through in the air. You know, you can prevent a Baneslayer Angel from gaining 5 life if they you just sacrifice the creature that it blocks. So sometimes, you know, your opponent will stabilize on a low life total with the Baneslayer. You just swing with the team, and then the Baneslayer locks in the block, and you sacrifice the creature it's blocking, you know, which prevents the life gain, and then you can kill them, you know, because you go wide. So there's a lot of cool little tricks that you can play with Devouring Swarm. I really like the card, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to play black aggro along with Tormented Hero, who I love, and also Bloodghast. I haven't had a chance to play with Bloodghast outside of this deck because I just don't think that there's many decks where you can handle his mana cost. And again, you know, with the, like I was talking about, the mana in this deck with these 2 drops here, there's only 4 copies total between the 2 of them, but when you draw them, you want to cast them. And, you know, you want to get this guy when you get to 3 mana. So, you know, mana's a bit sketchy, but it's pretty close, and it gets the job done as it is. It might need a little bit of tweaking. But anyway, that's the deck, and hopefully you enjoy it. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people don't necessarily like to watch aggro decks, but, you know, I mean, I've got to give all the different playstyles some representation. So, I mean, I want to have a nice mix of aggro, control, and mid-range, and a splash of combo as much as I can, just to show some different playstyles and, you know, show some different cards. Like I said, the Hero and the Highborn, the Swarm. All these red cards, you know, we've seen all of these. We haven't seen Shortcutter on the channel yet because I haven't shown you the Goblin deck. Maybe I'll do that one of these weeks just for a laugh. But I think we all know the Goblin deck. Anyway, that's Rakdos Aggro, so I'll be back for another gameplay in a few minutes. Thanks for watching.